Can an 11-year-old consent to a double mastectomy?
All right, everybody. Remember, if you're being asked questions like this, if it seems like it's too obvious, and how could anybody agree or disagree with this, consider that the question might be poorly framed, or you might be missing something about the conversation. Let's dig in.
Well, they probably aren't formed then at that point, but
12-year-old.
Very, very important question. Can you get a double mastectomy before you have any breast tissue? Should it be legal? Well, is it possible? Is it possible according to physics?
Or can a 12-year-old consent?
Let's dig in.
I would think this is something that involves their parents.
Yeah, which,
And no,
as far as I'm aware, it currently does. I don't think there's... Let me know in the comments.
nobody here knows each other beforehand, right? This is the first time we've engaged each other.
Well, at the seminar, we've talked.
Yeah, the seminar.
This weekend.
Do you know Mike
Interesting.
Mena?
No.
So I thought everybody on the island knew each other. That's amazing to me. It's maybe a larger island than I
pleasantries.
thought it was.
Let's just jump in.
Okay, so where are we today?
Let's get this going.
We are in
faster.
Santa Barbara.
It's a lovely, lovely
Beautiful
place.
day. Beautiful place, beautiful day, lovely weather.
And where are you from?
Spokane, Washington.
Spokane. And you're from an island, sir.
Yes, I'm from Perth, Western Australia.
And how is it to be on a continent? How are you feeling?
Okay, I don't care about that.
Okay, so today,
So like on a continent.
today
Exciting
it's
stuff.
an inside joke. Okay, so today we're going to talk about trans issues. So
That's
let's
what we're
begin.
here for, everybody. That's what you're here for. It's what I'm here for.
Children cannot consent to puberty blockers. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
All right, let's see what kind of breakdown. Interesting. Okay. And is he...
Okay.
He's behind her, so he's on agree. Okay, so we've got a strongly agree and 2 agrees. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers. So, look, there's no problem with not having whatever ideologically diverse set of people in your social experiment. That's fine. That's not a problem. That's not something to knock him for. It sounds like these were people who are all here for a conference. And so this is, I'm not sure how he got involved with this, but they have already a pretty strong reaction to this. Children cannot consent to puberty blockers. Puberty blockers are, by definition, something that only ever could be administered to children, right? So, and children, okay, we'll maybe get into terms here. I've heard Peter Boghossian define children as somebody who's a minor, so 17 and under. Somebody who's 18 cannot take puberty blockers, because what is a puberty blocker going to do? Unless there's some off-label use that I'm not aware of, there might be. But puberty blocker arrests the development of puberty. If you've already gone through puberty, puberty blocker doesn't do anything. So definitionally, puberty blockers could only ever be taken by children. So there's something a little bit weird here about, does he think that every time they've ever been administered in history, he thinks puberty blockers maybe just shouldn't exist, or these people do him. Maybe I'm assuming something about his beliefs, but these people here, they think that they just shouldn't exist, because why should a medication exist that could never be ethically given to anybody who could ever take it, right? It's kind of a weird situation. Let's hear how they substantiate this point.
A 17-year-old girl who genuinely believes she's trapped in the wrong body cannot consent to a double mastectomy.
Okay, so this is a new question. It's kind of weird. I've seen this format a number of times. Usually he asks them a little bit about why they're standing in a certain place, what would it take to change their mind. Did we not do that discussion because they all kind of agreed? That seems kind of nonsensical.
Move.
Let's just go into a new question now. I don't know what's happening with the format.
At what age? 16?
17.
17. So at 16, you can get breast implants with parental support. He's not quite including that in the question, like with parental support. that would change a lot about how people would see this question. So if he said, could a 17-year-old with the support of their parents get a double mastectomy? He could clarify a lot more. Let's say you had breast cancer. Could you get a double mastectomy? He said, we're talking about trans issues, so presumably he's talking about as some kind of gender confirmation surgery, gender affirming surgery. Could you have top surgery? Could a 17-year-old consent to that? Or should they have to wait until they're 18? Let's see. Hopefully they go into detail of why they
So
believe
you think
this,
if somebody,
this one.
I just want to make sure that we're on the same.
Okay, so now we've got neutral, we've got disagree, and we've got strongly agree. So we actually have a big split here. Let's see. Maybe they'll drill down on this one.
Page. If somebody is 17 and she genuinely believes she's trapped in the wrong body, she can have her breast chopped off.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, look, maybe this is a small point. I think, Peter Boghossian isn't like a healthcare provider. He's never had any interaction with any kind of medical industry. He was never like a therapist or anything like that. He was a professor of philosophy, I think, and ethics. I feel like when you are talking about these kinds of sensitive and medical topics, something like having their breast chopped off, it feels a little bit of a kind of extreme and maybe somewhat loaded description. So again, somebody who had breast cancer and had to get a double mastectomy, for to remove cancer tissue. Say, she went and got her breast chopped off. I feel like you would maybe say it in a somewhat more sensitive way. There's no reason to not do that here. Maybe it seems like a small thing. I don't know. Let me know your thoughts in the comments.
Okay. And you believe that she cannot.
She cannot.
Okay, let's do this. Grab the board over there and grab the board. And
I like this. It's going to say, why do you think this person thinks this thing? Or why do you think this thing? And then they kind of guess each other. I think this is a really good technique. I think this can be a great way to draw out, get people to assume a different perspective and think about it differently. I like this a lot.
write down your best reason for believing that. And maybe we're going to have you guess.
What I've written?
Yeah.
Oh, he's
What do you
gonna
think
guess,
the
okay.
reason that she wrote down is.
I believe she thinks
Or she's going to
that
guess, okay.
17 years is close enough to 18 to make them an adult, which allows them to make an adult decision.
Okay. I think that's a fair guess. I don't think that that's what she's going to say.
About
let's
their
see.
future.
I think she's going to say more something like, well, actually, you know what? Maybe that is a fair. I don't know why I would say it that way. It's close enough to 18, but 16 is, 16 is enough of like an adult to make, you can start working, you can get breast implants. Yeah, you can get married, I think, right? In some states you can get married.
Okay, don't say anything yet. Is that the reason you wrote down? Don't tell her. Is that the reason?
No.
Is the reason she gave you better than the reason you have written down?
Not to me.
Okay.
I totally see it.
You totally
I
see-
agree. I not agree, but I can see why somebody would feel that way. But yeah.
Okay. What do you think the best reason she has for believing that, for standing on the strongly agree is?
So if I were to guess, it would be something like, that's a really big decision. Well, now that she said what she's guessing for the woman on the left, we have maybe a good way to guess, which is something like, well, 17, you're almost 18. Just wait till you're 18 and you're an adult and then you can do whatever you want. Well, why even do this as a minor? Just give it one more year. I'm guessing that's going to be her reason.
I think she thinks that she'll regret it.
Is
I wouldn't guess that, so that she might regret it. I would say that it's more related to she's close to being an adult. Why not just be an adult?
don't show her. Is that correct?
No.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right. My island friend. What do you think the person on the strongly agree? What do you think her reason for that is? Her best reason that you wrote down?
I think she has written something along the lines of a voluntary mastectomy for a 17-year-old girl is a life-altering decision and shouldn't be allowed.
I mean, I think she'll agree with that, but it doesn't feel like a reason. It's not clearly like logically connecting those two. Yeah,
But why?
not enough of the why.
Because when you're young, you tend to make bad decisions. And
Okay, that's
if you're not yet an adult,
More of a
17, you're not
complete
considered an adult, that
answer.
that could be a bad decision.
Is that don't show us?
I don't think that's exactly what it is, but I think it probably covers part of it.
Is that correct?
That is essentially correct.
Essentially.
Okay.
So would you say, okay,
So you could make a bad decision.
that's pretty much a yes.
Yes.
Okay. Now you did
Okay.
such a good job, my island friend. Let's see if you can guess her reason. What do you think her reason is?
I think her reasoning is that it should be allowed, whether or not it's a good idea or not.
Is he correct?
Should be allowed. I mean, it's an interesting perspective. It should be allowed whether it's a good idea or not. I mean, most things are allowed whether they're good ideas or not, right? You can take all of your money out of your bank account and go to a casino and gamble it all. There's nothing illegal about that. You could just go do it. Please don't. But you legally can, and it's not a good idea. So in general, we give people who certainly are adults. So I think a 16-year-old can't gamble or 17-year-old can't gamble. I think you need to be 18 to gamble for reasons exactly like that. Let's see what she says.
Correct.
Oh, it wasn't my first, but it was my second.
Okay. So neither individual has guessed neither the continent dweller or the island man has guessed your first. Your
Not my first, but
Okay.
my
I'm
second.
gonna give you one more opportunity to see if you can get in her head and guess.
Okay, so she disagrees that a 17-year-old should be allowed to have a double mastectomy if
Wait, I thought it was the opposite.
they believe they're in the wrong body.
Genuinely believe.
Genuinely believe.
Wait,
Why would someone?
And you're saying it's not because they're close enough to an adult, which is what my original guess was.
that was her
I think she meant the opposite of what she said.
third. That's not what she's saying.
The 17 people, we can send people kids to war, all different kinds of things. But
So my guess is something like somebody who is 17, who feels this is incredibly important, has a good enough reason. I mean, it feels like it's a little bit. I wouldn't say maybe the hinging point isn't whether or not she's an adult. All right, if you want to pause the video, type some guesses. I'd be curious to see what people think. This is actually kind of difficult, kind of fun, trying to guess. Yeah, what does this person think? What is their reasoning for this?
So I think that you think it would be permissible
acceptable.
because you believe, how about this? Because if you believe that if they are not permitted, they will do something more drastic.
No, but that's a good one. No. I like that. Not close.
But that's not right. Is the reason that she just gave better than the reason you have
No.
there? No. Okay. So we're gonna give him, our friend,
One more chance.
one more opportunity.
One shot, one opportunity.
We've had 4 tries. I'm not sure. Yeah,
That's it.
can't
That's
think
I
of
don't know
any.
is always a good answer. All right, share with them, please. Show them.
But I do believe people can be hardwired, like from a very, it's a genetic or not genetic, but whatever. I know people that from a very young age they knew they were gay. They just know, and so then they have the right to be in the body they feel they should be, and it's not my right to stop them or to encourage them.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, I think this is a compelling argument. This is always something that you balance, right? So I feel similar to her in the sense that I think people who are adults wildly underestimate how much children and young people. Okay, somebody who's 17-year-old is not they're not a child. They're a minor. They're that's not usually how we'd use the term child. But people who are not of the age of majority can have some awareness of who they are, or even very young people can have some awareness of who they are, know things about themselves very strongly. At the same time, there's a lot that you can get wrong, when you're younger, that you have very little experience of the world. Your identity is not so stabilized. So we're always balancing what kinds of autonomy somebody who's younger should have for their own safety, while at the same time recognizing that one of the most damaging things I think that you can do to somebody who's very young is taking away their autonomy. To teach somebody at a young age, you're not to be trusted for decisions about your life. You are not. You should not be given the freedom to make your own life path. There's no safe way out. There's no safe way to live your life, right? Not doing and doing are the same. It does seem very, very strange to me when I think about this, that the people who say, oh, Gen Z or millennials are really kind of undeveloped or underdeveloped, children living as adults. Back in my day, my grandpa fought in wars, and by the time he was 18, he'd had some kids and had a job and did all this stuff, and he was already, living as a whatever, and my mom was, making these big choices. I don't see how you can simultaneously say people need to grow up and be more responsible and start taking initiative earlier in life, and at the same time, we need to legally restrict. The government needs to come in and make it so that a person cannot even consult with a medical professional to try to live in a way that they, yes, as a younger person, have decided that they want to live, maybe even with the support of their parents. To say that the government is going to come in and say you can't live your life this way. Those seem like very contradictory value statements. Maybe somebody can help me understand why those aren't in contradiction. I don't get it.
Hey, can you please share with her your reason? Or with both
I
of
read-
them?
read
Yeah, well,
this?
just turn
Okay.
around and show both of them.
So I don't think a 17-year-old has enough emotional maturity to make that decision about something that will affect them the rest of their life, when very often people at that age are searching for a variety of things in their lives. And this, to me, is too extreme a decision to make at that age.
Is her reason sufficient for you to move to agree?
I would say no, because the gay
Yeah, I mean, again, this is. I don't know that this is a consistent standard that we apply. So somebody who's 17, she's saying, you want to get a double mastectomy. Would it matter to them if somebody was getting a single mastectomy, getting one breast removed? I'm not sure, but they're saying 17, you can't make such a life-altering decision, but at 18, you can enlist and go to war. I mean, that seems like a kind of sharp step up, right? Does anyone else feel that way? I mean, at 16 you can start working. At 16 you can get married in some states. I mean, you can determine a lot about your life. To say at 17, you might make some stupid decisions. I mean, absolutely. At 20, at 21, I mean, I think some of my stupid decisions in my life dropped off later in my 20s compared to earlier in my 20s and earlier in my teens or later teens. There's definitely certain types of things you learn about the world that you can make fewer dumb mistakes. But I mean, you never stop. And again, there's no perfectly safe way to live life, and nor should we want, I think, to make life totally safe. I think we need to give people autonomy to make decisions about their lives.
example is not something where an individual would be self-mutilating.
We're coming to that.
And again, so she's using very loaded terminology, self-mutilating. I mean, that can be how you see it. I think, again, if somebody were getting a mastectomy for oncological reasons because they had cancer tissue in their breasts, would you really walk up to somebody who got a double mastectomy because they had breast cancer and say, oh, how did your mutilation go? I think you'd probably be a little bit more sensitive. So it seems like there's maybe not a full, I don't know. It seems like there's some emotional background that this has for her. I'd be curious to know what that is.
Is her reason sufficient to move you to slightly disagree?
I think the age is arbitrary. 18, 17, 19, 21. So no, I think we've got to draw the line somewhere. I think an adult should be allowed to make that decision though. But I'm going to stick with neutral because I'm sympathetic to both these sides. I'm not really sure exactly where.
Is that argument sufficient to move you to the slightly agree? And that a 17-year-old does not have enough emotional maturity to make life-altering decisions to self-mutilation.
Yeah, I think so. I think because 18 is probably a better.
Okay, so that moved you to slightly agree.
Yeah.
Okay. What would it take you to move to agree? You're on the strongly agree. What would it take?
I think it would have to be probably age. I think age is the qualifier in this situation.
That's a weird. What does she mean by that? A 17-year-old would have to be older than 17 for her to change her mind. I don't know that is a coherent concept.
I believe adolescents are, very often just confused about things. And
so if I redid the question and said 18, what line would you be on? What mat would you be on?
if it was 18, I would have to move to agree.
Really?
Or slightly agree. I believe slightly.
Okay. What would it take you?
That's interesting. So that if you're an adult, you should be able to make this decision. But then she says, if you're an adult, I don't think you should be able to make this decision. So she's lacking some consistency there.
To move either to strongly disagree or to slightly disagree.
The more baseline thing is, it seems like she doesn't think that this should happen. She doesn't think there's a good reason for this to happen. That would be maybe a good line of questioning. What would it take to convince you that there's a good reason for this to happen ever? And she might say, "Oh, I don't think it could." It's like, okay, well, what would it take? Let's see if she's open to considering that maybe there's something she doesn't know about the world.
Let's start with the conversation here. Slightly disagree. What would it take you? What evidence or reason would it take?
If there was mental health issues, then I would say we should, wait.
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting that. So what she's bringing up is on a kind of case-by-case basis. That's, I mean, it's clear she maybe hasn't thought this through so much, because if you didn't have some kind of mental health issue, you probably wouldn't be getting a procedure like this, right? So it's kind of a catch-22 what she's saying. It doesn't really make any sense that having a mental health issue would rule you out from getting a procedure that would be relevant to your mental health. That's like saying, well, you probably shouldn't get SSRIs if you're depressed, because depressed people might make worse decisions, and how can you really know if you're depressed? If you're depressed, you shouldn't take depression pills. It's like, okay, well, you'd only ever take SSRIs if you had some kind of mental health situation. So yeah, it doesn't really make sense. But the interesting thing is, no one's bringing up any kind of empirical. It's like, okay, well, how often does this occur? Does this occur? I mean, let's see. I think, and we looked it up, and it's something like this almost never happens. It's maybe a couple of thousand procedures like this in the last number of years. It's very rare. I mean, how many 16-year-olds or 17-year-olds get breast implants? Granted, that may not be as life altering as having breast tissue removed. So that's fair. But none of them has brought up, okay, do we have any empirical evidence on whether this improves health outcomes? Surely that must matter a little bit. I think for myself, if I were on some point in this line, what would it take to get you to move toward more agree or more disagree? Well, if we had some kind of study to suggest that this procedure in the circumstances in which it's performed would improve health outcomes, then that would be very relevant. That might be one of the most relevant things.
They're struggling, like just in general, like, or they maybe I don't know. Age wouldn't matter. Yeah. So for me, it's not necessarily age. It's more. I mean, because there's people that are mature at different times in their lives too. So it depends on where they're at. I mean, I know a lot of 40-year-olds that behave like 5-year-olds too. So I don't know.
And 50-year-olds, I must say.
Yeah.
What would it take you to move to strongly disagree?
Strongly disagree. Maybe if the age was brought down significantly to like, still pretty like low, like 12.
This is so strange. I mean, look, I'm not the one running this experiment, but it seems really strange to say what would it take to change your mind on this question. And none of them talk about, well, evidence of like the outcome of doing something or not doing something. They talk about, well, if it were a different situation, if we're talking about people of a different age. It seems like a fundamentally strange way to philosophically deal with the question. I don't know if anyone else sees that like that.
So can an 11-year-old consent to a double mastectomy?
Well, they probably aren't formed then at that point, but
12-year-old, can a 12-year-old consent?
I would think this is something that involves their parents.
Okay. All right. All right. So so let's put those down.
And I mean, my guess is that that's never happened. So yeah, again, we get to why are we talking about this? How did this conversation arise? Why is this the discourse?
Down, and I'm going to ask a couple more questions in here. All right. 2 claims. First claim. People can be born gay. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Or people are born gay. Can be, yeah. All right, you agree? You
People can be versus are. I mean,
you agree, and you two strongly agree. Okay, people can be born trans. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
oh, interesting.
Well, now this is
Oh, that's fascinating. Okay, so she does, that same woman who was, this is agree, yeah. She slightly agree.
interesting. So you slightly agree, and 2 people are on the neutral. Why do you?
So she thinks maybe somebody could be born trans. Maybe it makes sense for them to get a mastectomy, top surgery, but that they should be careful that they're correct about it and they should wait till they're an adult. If that's the case, I mean, that seems like a perfectly reasonable, sensible. There could be some minor issues with that. You know, somebody who's 17 who's considering getting a mastectomy. I mean, that's not a common situation. That's a very extreme circumstance in which that's even occurring. It feels like, not to bring in other issues and make it more complicated, but it's like, how do you feel about somebody getting an abortion at, 8 months? It's like, well, does that happen a lot? Why does that happen? Oh, it only ever happens because somebody is trying to prevent the mother from dying 100%. Like, the mother and the child, 100% chance dying in childbirth. Well, is that something that we really want to have the government come in and say, no, the doctor shouldn't decide that, just some office somewhere, some governmental office should decide that? It seems like a weird reason to restrict freedom without really understanding anything about the circumstance.
Why are you on the neutral for people can be born trans?
I think the jury's out on why it happens. And I think there's more than one reason it happens as well. Whereas I think with being gay, I think generally that's something that was always going to happen. I think that you're born gay. I'm not sure about with trans. I'm not sure.
Okay, new claim.
He seems so reasonable and just yeah, you know, I'm not going to make a decision or state a definitive answer one way or another until I kind of know something about this. But really wonderful.
Being gay is a condition that needs to be fixed. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. 2 strongly disagrees and 1
Interesting.
disagrees.
I'm curious to hear.
Being trans is a condition that needs to be.
I wish he, you know, I understand that there's like the juicier topic he wants to get into, but I would love to hear their reasoning for one versus the other, because I think that's really instructive. You believe this thing, for what reason? Oh, you believe something slightly different for something somewhat different. Why do you believe that? I would love to hear actually what the comparisons of those responses are.
Be fixed.
You know, just some feedback for Peter on how you run your experiments.
Move. Okay.
Well, I mean, there's different ways to interpret that. Being trans is like a condition that needs to be fixed. That could mean a lot of different things.
So strongly disagree, slightly disagree, and slightly agree. How did you interpret when I said fixed? Like, what does that mean to you?
Mm-hmm.
I believe that the modern day sort of trans things that are happening, because so much of it is a dysphoria in young people, I think that there may be a little bit of social contagion going on. And not everyone. I don't believe that all people that choose to be trans need to be fixed. But I do believe that at certain ages, when it presents itself, that there can be a way to help those people learn to accept themselves the way they are, or eventually do transition.
Okay. New claim. The main.
Okay. I mean, again, I think she's got a grasp on some of this. Clearly, she's somewhat still kind of early stages of thinking through topics like this, which is fine. You shouldn't have to be an expert to be talking about or thinking about these things. But just to provide another different perspective, you know, so phrases like people who choose to be trans. So I want to be clear that this is not any kind of like tone policing. This is just picking up on how she's saying this and what this implies about her perspective. So I'm not saying that she's a bad person or she's even wrong for saying it this way. I'm just talking about what this implies about how she sees this topic by the kind of ways that she's talking about and therefore thinking about it. So somebody who decides to be trans, so you might say somebody who chooses to be open. She said that she thinks that people are probably trans from birth. So she thinks that people kind of like are trans, and she said that maybe there's some people who have some kind of social contagion. I've talked about that on other videos. Maybe I'll do a full video just dedicated to that, because it's a talking point that comes up a lot. But I think a lot of what she said made sense. That there's probably different reasons people are visibly trans, or people kind of come out of the closet or transition socially or medically or otherwise, and that for some people there may be some kind of self-acceptance, which I would interpret that more broadly, which is that in a world in which we didn't enforce gender roles to the degree that we do, in terms of, oh, being a boy, you have to be like this. Being a girl, you have to be like this. That maybe people wouldn't feel nearly as much pressure to transition in any way, because you wouldn't have to be so different to be a boy or girl, man or woman, whatever.
Main cause for gender dysphoria is genetic. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. The main cause for gender dysphoria is genetic. Okay, so we have strongly disagree, and
I'm not sure. Say that again. So
the main cause for gender dysphoria is genetic.
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't know, exactly where I'd stand on that one. The main cause for gender dysphoria So it's talking about gender dysphoria. So this is some kind of, I mean, the literal description is it feels bad to be associated with a particular gender, and that implies that you feel that this dysphoria, which is not just a mild, oh, I don't love that, but it's like, oh, this feels excruciating. This feels unbearable to be associated and socially recognized as this gender. Maybe it would feel that pain would be relieved if I were to myself, saw myself as a different gender, and for other people to see me as a different gender, or potentially as being less associated with being gendered at all, right? So somebody who is female, who was assigned female at birth, who is treated as a girl for whatever that means, they might feel gender dysphoria because, wow, there's so much, like, even as a young person. So they were talking about, would it be wrong for a 12-year-old or an 11-year-old to get a double mastectomy? I mean, an 11-year-old there wouldn't be anything for a mastectomy to be applied to. But you do hear these kinds of sharing from women that at very young ages, as young as 11 or 12 or younger, being catcalled on the street, being sexualized in gross ways by family or friends, or in movies or TV. So something like that could be enough to be, it feels really, really painful and unsafe to be a part of this. That could be a reason. That could be enough reason for somebody to feel that way. If that really, really resonated with them. For somebody else, it might be just, I just don't see myself as that. It just isn't me. These kinds of associations. I see myself absolutely as this other gender. That's just what I am. Or maybe, like, I don't really relate to any of this gender stuff at all. So there's a lot of different ways that people can relate to the cultural norms, and that's more what gender dysphoria is related to. There's other things like body dysmorphia that I feel like probably come from a couple different places when it comes to things like being of a certain sex and body dysmorphia, and being like, oh, I'm growing breasts, this is totally wrong for me. That could come from something that is very innate in who you are, and you might recognize from a very young age, this is just not me. And that could also come from something like body dysmorphia absolutely could come from social media, where people, young boys and girls now at alarming rates, see themselves in relation to hyper altered photographs and video in TikTok, Instagram, I guess Facebook, maybe. I'm not sure if this happens so much. Either Photoshop or AI, or just, airbrushed, or just the right angles, or, sucking in your stomach, or getting the light to hit the right way. You can change a lot about making a photograph represent you very differently from how you look in real life. And people who spend so much time, young people who spend so much time looking at photographs, can have a very distorted view of themselves and what they look like and what they're supposed to look like and things like that. That absolutely can cause body dysmorphia. So I think all of these different causes are worth talking about. And somebody says it's only this one thing or this other thing, I don't think has an accurate picture.
You can go to the neutral if you don't know. Neutral is always a good, I don't know is a perfectly fine answer. The main cause for gender dysphoria is social. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
This is a really complicated question, right? What would it mean to be gender dysphoric in a society where we didn't gender people separately. We say, okay, you have the sperm, you have the eggs. These people need a mate to make a baby, but otherwise, there's no article of clothing that one person wears or job that one person does. If our society didn't represent, Disney boy dogs with the big paw and the girl dogs with the little paw and the cute little like makeup ears, whatever, right? You see this stuff in such a deeply intense representation of feminine and masculine. Boys and girls are not just different, but they're the most different that two things could be. Versus in reality, the kinds of traits like height and weight and muscle tone and intelligence and aptitude for different things and personality traits like empathy or aggression. These are things that vary more within a given sex than across sexes, or within a given gender more than across genders. So we've really amplified how much these things are night and day totally different. And if that weren't the case, I don't know if anybody's heard of this example of men on Twitter talking about how they don't wash their entire body because washing certain parts of their body would make them gay. This is an intense level of some kind of cultural poisoning that people think that to be a woman means to cry at a movie. To be gay means to wash your entire body thoroughly. So on one hand, you have people saying, "Oh, it doesn't make you a woman or not a man just because you wear a dress. You're not a man." But if you don't like MMA, you're not a man, right? So the ways that we sort people around and categorize and recategorize and kind of gatekeep or push gender on somebody or grasp it away from somebody else, these cultural things make a big difference, I think, in terms of how people feel about themselves, their own identity, and gender dynamics. If that were really different, I can imagine that a lot of things in the conversation around being trans would be very different, because what it means to be trans is to have some difference between the way that gender is pushed on you or sexuality is pushed on you when it comes to being gay or straight. If these things weren't so cast in stone, maybe people wouldn't feel the need to transition to the degree that they do today.
Well, that got people to move. 2 on slightly agree and 1 on slightly disagree. The main cause for homosexuality is genetic. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Everybody's on agree. The main cause for homosexuality is social. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move. Disagree, 2 disagrees, and a slightly disagree.
All right, so again, you could look at this where in the times of Socrates, for example, Greek or Roman antiquity, really up until something like the 18th century, the idea of being gay, meaning you're attracted to men as a man, or you're attracted to women as a woman, was not really how people thought of this. That acts with the same or opposite sexes were something that somebody might do or not do for different reasons. But the idea of a person is this or a person is this is a much more recent understanding of humanity and how people are in the world. So when you say, society is the cause of somebody being gay, I mean, if you are a man and you date another man, and you have sex with another man, does that make you gay? We have bisexuality as something that we talk about now. But this idea that it's like, find out what you are, and that it's not like just some act that defines you or doesn't define you. There's this joke, build a bridge. They don't call you an architect. Suck one, whatever. People call you gay, right? So it's this idea that in certain directions, just one thing could be enough to totally categorize you. That is a societal. It's a societal choice, whether it's wrong or right or however you feel about it. It's something that used to be different. I think we should return to traditional values and not, put people necessarily into boxes. I don't think it's helpful. I think also if you're against identity politics, you should be against totalizing somebody's identity as, oh, you are this thing. Just say, okay, this is a thing I have done or like to do or don't like to do. Don't make it your identity or somebody else's identity. If you're against that type of thing, then don't do it.
Anything that is a choice is open to moral judgment. Anything that is a choice is open to moral judgment.
I think yes, right? Yeah, of course.
Anything that is a choice is
Spent
open
a long
to moral
time here.
judgment. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
I might get this. I don't know how interesting this is going to be.
Yeah, everyone's thinking deeply here. This is a tricky one. This is not an easy one. And neutral can also be like, I don't know. That's fine. That's
Like, yeah, something specific would help. But
a little too broad.
yeah.
I mean, that feels like the definition of thing that is subject to moral judgment is choices. If you have a choice, if you could have done something different, you chose to do this thing. There could be mitigating circumstances or whatever. You could talk about what goes into a choice or why a choice might not be entirely free. But if there's some autonomous choice, then by definition, I think I can't. I'm not aware of any kind of philosophical framework that, if you were to make moral judgments about something, wouldn't apply to choices.
Anything that's a choice, like driving a car or riding a bike. I
Big
don't.
Mac or a fish sandwich.
Yeah.
but even those would be open to judgment in terms of like eating animals, right?
Well, you said a moral choice.
Yeah, a moral choice, a moral judgment.
I would judge you.
You would judge it? Are you a vegetarian?
Yes, I am.
So you would judge it?
Yeah.
Okay, good point. Yeah.
So there could be some things that you judge as neutral, but that's kind of still a judgment, I would say.
What would you like? Would you look down on her for eating animals? Would that be the
I wouldn't look down on you because it's a common practice that most people do, but I think it's a
Okay.
So maybe we just need to expand the system that we're all been stuck in for so long and broaden that to have other options.
It is okay for adult males to dress in a feminine way anywhere they want. It is okay for adult males to dress.
It's like, look, there's nothing wrong, I think, with how Peter phrased that. I think that's fine, but it does feel like there's this really particular focus on men dressing as women, whatever. It's like, trans men just get entirely erased from this conversation. It's kind of this hyper fixation. It feels like there's something specific going on there. I'm so curious about the psychology of people who are just so like fixated on this.
In a feminine way anywhere they want. Move. Agree, strongly agree. Okay, so I would feel comfortable in a locker room with a person of the opposite sex who was intact, who did not receive surgery. Move. You all strongly agree. Yeah. Okay, you all strongly agree. I would feel comfortable in a locker room with a person who had bottom surgery. Oops, sorry about that. Move.
Well, surely they're not going to move here, but
So-
he kind of asked that out of order. If there's no reason, right, that they would move, right? If they're comfortable with somebody who is of the opposite sex but is of the same gender, who has socially transitioned but not medically transitioned or not surgically transitioned in any way, then they would be presumably just as comfortable or more comfortable with somebody who has transitioned at like a surgical level as well, right? There's no reason they would move here if they were standing on that line.
So you didn't move. Whether or not someone had surgery, that didn't change your opinion at all.
Well, yeah, he just asked that out of order. I don't know if he understands why it's unsurprising they didn't move, because he asked it in an order that no one would ever move if they answer it this way.
That would not bother me. If I was changing in front of somebody, whatever person, that wouldn't bother me.
Okay, new claim. I would be willing to undergo sexual transition for $1 million. Move.
Yeah, I mean, I think people who think, oh yeah, $1 million, let's go, we're going to the moon, let's do it, baby. You know, I think haven't considered how disruptive that would be to your life.
Everybody's on strongly
But they-
disagree. I would
yeah.
be willing to undergo sexual transition for $100 million. Move.
I mean, so there's this kind of issue in thought experiments when you get to really large amounts of money. It's like, okay, you know, I would be really unhappy, but that's enough money for me to, you know, make a huge difference to somebody's life, or that would erase other issues. You know, this would suck in this way, but you know, at least I could afford a house. I don't know. It's like $100 million. Oh, I could start a charitable foundation. You know, would I sacrifice myself for this? You know, you get into some of those weirdish. Oh, for $1 billion. You know.
Move.
Let's see.
Everybody's on
But
strongly
they're-
disagree.
Yeah, they're not moving.
You can.
I'd have to think about it.
You're gonna think about it.
With all your money.
Okay, you're on slightly disagree. You two are on strongly disagree.
100 million.
I would be willing
It's a
to
lot of money.
undergo sex transition for $1 billion.
Right. So like, oh, $1 billion. Well, first of all, I would just get a really good surgery going back the other way, you know, and it, you know, wouldn't be perfect, but my body would be, you know, pretty messed up relative to what I want. But $1 billion, first of all, I could afford really good surgery, and second of all, it's $1 billion. You know, I could change the world, or whatever, right? You start getting into that domain. It's kind of like, would you be blind for whatever, you know? Like, okay, I mean, would you let some terrorist blow up an orphanage for $50 billion? It's like, well, I could save a bunch of orphanages from something. It's like, you know, you get this weird like trolley problem, basically.
Move. You're still on. So you wouldn't do it for $1 billion.
I wouldn't amputate my leg either, you know.
For $1 billion.
Nope.
Neither would I.
You're thinking about it. $1 billion.
about it.
You never have to work a day in your life.
Yeah, I would think about it.
Yeah, I mean, he's like, I don't know, dude. $1 billion, like, I don't know. That sounds pretty interesting for $1 billion. You know, pretty creative. I think what this is highlighting, I hope they'll really absorb this, and I hope people watching will absorb, which is that in general, nobody wants to sex transition for any kind of, or gender transition for any kind of like monetary or whatever material gain. For $1 million, for $100 million, for $1 billion, one dude says, okay, well, you know, $1 billion, it's worth thinking about it. You know, let's not be hasty here. There's such like a narrative that, oh, you know, I might get some kind of cultural cachet. I might get more Twitter followers if I transition. You know, maybe people will be nicer to me or something. Maybe I'll get hired if I transition. And this is why people are doing it, is because they just, you know, they're going to get some big benefit from it. And they're all saying, well, hell no, I'm not going to do that. Not for $1 billion. No, hell no. So why are people so quick to assume that, well, I never would, but maybe somebody else would? You know, maybe other people are super different from me, and they're just, you know, they would be willing to undergo some really disruptive thing that I absolutely wouldn't. You know, why Why would you think that?
I would amputate my left arm for $1 billion.
Left arm, $1 billion. I could get a new, new jetpack arm, a new rocket launcher arm. I don't know, right? We're getting into the territory with $1 billion. Oh, interesting. Well, do I want a really advanced prosthetic arm and still have, I don't know, at least $900 million?
Everybody stayed in the same.
Big
you
money
moved.
messes things up.
Wait, are you left-handed or right-handed?
Yeah. Good doing.
So you moved to slightly agree. So that tells me you value your penis more than you value your arm.
No, I think transitioning would fundamentally change who I am, and I like who I am. Whereas still having my right arm, removing my left arm, I think I would still be me, and I would have $1 billion, and that sounds pretty good. Yeah.
If I were in a serious
Yeah, I mean, think about that. Really, really absorb this. Somebody doesn't want to sex transition, gender transition, whatever, for material gain. This is not something that people want to do. If they do it, it's because they think this is like, thinking about the opposite direction. If you were born in a body that was as much of a mismatch as it would be for you to sex transition, what would you do to go back? First of all, right? How much of that billion would you spend trying to reverse whatever those surgeries or hormones or whatever? What would you spend to try to go back? Now think about that's exactly what trans people are trying to do. They're trying to, it's not reverse in terms of something that's occurred during their lifetime, but they're trying to align what their body is with what would not be this kind of like conflict and mismatch for them. That's what this guy's talking about, that would feel really awful to be in the wrong body. That's what trans people are going through. This is a perfect demonstration of it.
serious relationship with someone and I love them, and they suddenly came out and told me that they're trans and they want to undergo bottom surgery, and I've been with them for a while, I love them, they suddenly tell me unexpected that they're trans, I would stay with them. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
I mean, it's kind of an unfair, how could you know exactly what you would feel, in that moment? Maybe it would depend on the person. Like, it's a lot riding on something like that. For like, how would I feel in this moment? But let's see what people think about how they would feel.
Move.
And I think, would I still stay with that person? And they're kind of like,
Slightly agree, slightly
Hard
disagree.
to
slightly
say,
disagree. Why do you would stay with them? Wow, that's impressive.
I don't know why he why he said that. Okay.
Well, it's
Why is that impressive? I mean, yeah. Like, I don't want to read too deeply into what he's saying. But like, what? So it's like, let's say we use one of these other examples. If my partner became blind or injured or something, I would stay with them. You could say, okay, that's impressive. That could be hard, and maybe in the same way, it would be challenging. It could be challenging, but I mean, somebody realizing that they're trans and undergoing some kind of social or medical transition, you are already with them. This isn't somebody getting hit by a bus. This is somebody learning more about who they are and realizing how they can live more happily and more in congruence with like who they're supposed to be in the world. I mean, if anything, it would probably just make them a lot happier. So like, if your partner suddenly figured out, so let's say you put it this way, your partner realized one day they didn't want to be a banker, they wanted to be an artist. So maybe they won't make as much money. Things might be harder, in some ways, but they're going to be way happier. It's like, okay, I'd still be with them. Wow, impressive. It's like, think these things through a little bit more.
love. And if they got in a car accident and they couldn't walk, they're paraplegic or whatever, I would still stay with them as long as there was genuine love and respect and if their personality didn't change and they didn't become, mean, or we couldn't connect or whatever.
Yeah,
but I
I
wouldn't
mean-
simply.
That's a pretty reasonable answer. I mean, like it would kind of depend. Like, I don't know, how does that go?
For their body
Okay.
change.
So you two, wow, that's impressive. You would leave them. Why?
Fair enough. I take it back. He said everybody's impressive.
As the Aussie said, I think
Aussie, that's you, dude.
becoming transgender, making that significant of a change in your life, does change who you are.
And so it would be like you're in a relationship with a different person.
yeah, like in a way, breaks the covenant for me.
There's the cover. They're married. I think he just said relationship. Didn't say marriage, but
Covenant. Interesting. Your people
Okay.
have that tradition on the island, right?
The covenants,
Well, just whatever.
relationships, we have those. Yeah.
Okay, good.
I would
Okay.
think about it. I mean, I have no sexual interest in the male form, but most married couples barely have sex anyway. So I think you could still
huge
maybe not
W,
most, but I think you can still have a good relationship
like a W with it an L.
without that. So maybe I'd think about
You're a
it.
living advertisement for marriage. Okay, good. Well, should I have asked you
Trans affirming boomer takes. I love it.
anything that I didn't ask you, or would you like to explore any final topics?
I'm good.
You're good. You're good.
I'd like to hear what people think about transgender people competing. And, it would be like transgender women competing against natal-born women.
Did I?
In sports, presumably, and I don't think she's talking about darts. For people who aren't aware, there's a big controversy because a trans woman was competing against cis women in darts, and some of them, I'm not sure, one of them or some of them forfeited because they didn't want to compete against a trans woman in darts. It's not exactly MMA, is it?
Should I have asked anything I didn't?
No, but I am also curious about what people think about that.
All right, so let's do this. Trans women should be allowed in women's sports. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, move.
Yeah, strong.
One disagree and two strongly disagree. Two disagrees and one strongly disagree. All right, good. No, you can't do that. All right, good. Well, thank you for playing. I appreciate
the line.
that. I appreciate
Oh, okay. I don't understand the point of just stating what your viewpoint is and not going into any analysis of why you believe that. That seems so pointless.
that. Good. Good. Thank you. It was fun. Yay.
Yeah, okay. Okay. Well, that's pretty interesting. I think I'm going to leave it there for today. Yeah, I'll be so curious to hear what people say about this. I feel like there's a lot to dig into. If there's a lot of comments, maybe I'll just do a video reacting to comments, because I think there's so much to unpack here. Yeah, I'm really, really curious to hear what other people's perspectives are on this. I think it's really interesting. All right, thank you so much.